Good morning everyone, today we're talking about the biggest composition mistakes that we make. Let's go! Would you guys believe me if I told you that I used to be around here every weekend shooting couples and shooting portraits back in the days, and that's how I would make some money as a photographer. And I gotta say, that was really fun, and it was also a great learning curve for working with people, because people come from all around the world and you need to be friendly, you need to get the best out of them for the photos. So whether you like it or not, you quickly become better at it. I can tell you that, 100% guaranteed. All right, with that being said, today we're here to talk not about my past, but we're here to talk about composition, especially composition mistakes. What do we do that we could do better, or what is hindering our work whenever we're talking about composition? Because composition is obviously one of the most essential part about your photography. It literally defines how each element is placed in your frame. You know, how did you decide to build your frame? Well, today we're going to be talking about 4 or 5 of the biggest mistakes I've seen done and I still sometimes do. So if you're ready, we're gonna get started, and after that I'm gonna give you a big update, or little, depends on your perspective. So let's get started with this little Paris episode. Alright, biggest mistake number 1 is simply overthinking your composition in camera, but missing the most important. I know that might happen. You might be like, what are you talking about? Well, imagine you're shooting in the streets, or you're shooting some action happening, and there's this really cool guy walking by or passing by, a really cool subject, and you really want to get that action. Well, it happens that if you're overthinking your composition, you will miss that action. And that's where, in my opinion, that's a really big mistake I see people do. They actually spend so much time trying to get the right angle, trying to get the door 2/3 of the image, etc., that they actually miss the subject. They miss the story in that image, and that story, that subject, is what will make that great photo. Now, you might be wondering, well, that's great, Pierre. I got a photo of a guy and he looks really cool, but the composition's terrible. We can't even see him. Now what? Well, now it brings me to the second biggest mistake I see people make, and it's not using the crop tool. Crop tool is amazing. Whenever you're shooting something, I highly recommend you to recrop your photo after to find better compositions. You would be so surprised to see how many times I actually shoot and then have a vague idea of the composition I want, but then refine it in Lightroom. Meaning when I'm editing, I'm going to go and I'm going to recrop my images, and I can go through different types of composition. I can use the spiral, I can use the rule of third, the golden rule, I can use triangles, or I can use diagonals to find the right composition. And I can do all that work after work. And that is exactly why I think it is so important that you edit your photos in general, but also that you take a time to look and reflect. Now, there is something to say, is that over time, actually the more you shoot and the more natural your compositions are going to end up in your frames. You know, if you shoot a ton using rule of thirds, I can tell you that after 5 or 10,000 photos, most likely it's going to become second nature. I have to say that for me it has become a little bit second nature, especially with the rule of third, where I'm always going to have my subject in my frames already in camera in one of the thirds or at the intersections. And that's something I highly encourage you to work on. But don't dismiss cropping. I see a lot of people think cropping is a bad thing. Cropping is like the evil of photography, but it's not. It's actually one of the best tools you can ever use. I've seen beginners get great shots, although in camera it looked like nothing, because they take their time and they recrop properly and get rid of whatever is not important in that frame afterwards. So if you're guilty as charged, try that. If you're not, awesome, high five. Alright, and now number 3, guys. Third biggest mistake is simply not shooting wide enough. It goes with whatever we said before about cropping. If you're not shooting wide enough, your composition, you cannot play with it, especially nowadays in our social media age. If you're publishing to Twitter, you might want to have it square. If you want to publish to Instagram, you might want to have your image in 4:5, etc. And if you're not shooting wide enough, you have to remove elements that you wanted to integrate in your composition. Just trust me on that. I did that mistake a lot in the past, and now my rule of thumb is always shoot wider. Whatever you want to get, just shoot wider. and afterward you can recrop it properly for the different platforms. You can even make a landscape photo into a portrait photo just for social media. That is super important. Now, how do you like the Eiffel Tower view? Pretty cool, no? Look at that. Come a little bit closer, I'll show you something. Look at all the photographers over there. So funny. Which brings us to point number 4. Another one I see a lot of people do is simply not following the rule, which is less is more. You know, if you're trying to put too much into your composition, then it just gets stuffy. I'm a very strong believer and activist for clean frames. What I mean by clean frames is simply having as little possible in the frame, but as much to add to the story as possible. What do I mean by that? Let's remember that less is more, right? What does that mean to us is simply that we shouldn't be seeing a scene and just trying to capture everything. We should be selecting the components that will add to the image we're trying to create versus just trying to throw in everything. So that's a mistake I see a lot, and whenever you feel that your shot is stuffy, or whenever you feel that you don't know what to focus on in an image, that's usually the reason. And I used to do that a lot, and one day I decided, you know what, I need to practice clean frames, I need to practice minimalism in the photos, and that really helped me a lot. So that's a big mistake that I think prevents a lot from just getting easy photos to read and to look at. So that's if you're guilty of that one and you want to work on that one, highly recommend you to also look at the video I did with Ivana Cook, where she talks about minimalism shooting. Very helpful in her approach. She even pushes that to the next level, and I think that's pretty cool. How can we achieve the same results?
So we shot sharks and rays the other day out in the water, and I have 3 essential tips that I think would be best if you're learning or would like to learn how to do minimalistic photos.
And it doesn't matter if you're on your couch, if you're in a city. Alright, last mistake I've seen done a lot, and I did it too, is simply not breaking the rules. You know, we hear about all those composition rules, we hear about rule of thirds, symmetry, golden number, diagonal triangles, all that stuff, which is great, but it's also very important for us to be able to move away from those rules, either by breaking them or recombining them together. And if you're in post and you're really trying to fit it in a rule and it doesn't work out for you, but you prefer it without following any kind of composition rule, just go for it. Don't wait for anyone's approval. Don't wait for another photographer who is supposedly older than you to tell you, no, you need to follow that rule. No. Do what you love. Do what feels great to you. And if you're working with clients and you have a few options, you're not sure which one to choose from, well, maybe do 3 different crops and let your client choose. That's it, guys. I wanted to share with you those mistakes because I did all of them in the past. That's why I can talk about them, obviously. And also simply because composition is a big topic, and I think it can really make or break a great photo. And the most important thing you should walk away with today is simply that even if you didn't get it right in camera, you can still make it happen in the future. You can do it after. I did a video on just cropping. If you want to see like how much I crop some images, you will be surprised, I guarantee you. But sometimes it's required, and the more pixels you have, the more you can crop. That's also an advantage of getting cameras with higher number of pixels. Some people are like, it's useless. I think sometimes it's useful because you don't need to buy a tele zoom lens or whatever. You can buy a wider lens and then recrop. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful, and I wanted to welcome you to Paris. I took you here this morning at sunrise because that's where I used to shoot when I was shooting those clients. The tourists that were coming to Paris, they wanted awesome photos in Paris, and duh, everyone wants the Eiffel Tower, so that was literally one of the stops you had to make. And you also get great sunrises over here. So now, what do I ask you to do? I ask you 2 things. If you learn anything, just let me know on Instagram. Come say hi at Pierre T. Lambert. Please come say hi, and maybe send me your photos. If you applied something really cool, I want to see it. And second, if you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe, hit that SUBSCREB button, ring that notification bell. It's gonna make a huge song. It's gonna be amazing. You'll be following all the adventures. We're going back to Chicago soon. There's gonna be some Mexico adventures. So if you're in Mexico and Tulum, Cancun area, please let me know, send me your recommendations. And with that being said, guys, get out there, go shoot, try something different, try something new. I will see you in the next episode. Bye!